As I said, my name is Liza. I am wearing a white shirt. I am sitting in front of a gray wall, and there is an ornately framed painting behind me. I am the Strategic Programs Manager here at TAC. And I'm going to start with a really brief introduction of myself. I always think, especially when we're talking about being a newcomer to Canada, it's important to sort of socially locate ourselves. I identify as a white, cis, straight woman, and I use the pronouns she, her. I was born on the traditional lands of the Ohlone of Northern California in what is colonially known as San Francisco. I grew up in the arts before moving to Toronto to go to U of T in 2003, and I became a permanent resident in 2014. Over the course of those 10 or 11 years, I interacted frequently with the Canadian government in my efforts to become a permanent resident, but it wasn't until I started working in arts management that I first heard of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Covenant, Toronto Treaty 13, or the Williams Treaties. And I encourage you to look those up, and I'm happy to share those again. If anybody has a question, pop it in the Q&A. If you don't know about those treaties, I think they're a really important part of understanding where we live. Part of my understanding of my community is that Toronto has been the site of human activity for 10,000 years or more. And I want to acknowledge the diversity of First Peoples, both recognized and unrecognized, including the Wendat, Anishinaabe Nation, Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently, the Mississauga of the Credit. Toronto continues to be home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. And as a settler on this land, I've benefited significantly from colonial culture that has overseen genocide, systemic oppression, and exploitation of Indigenous peoples. Not just Indigenous peoples, Black people, people who are differently abled, poor people, those who identify as gender or sexually nonconforming, and other people of color. My work has been fatefully shaped by my entry into this community as an invisible immigrant and by my work in theater production and arts management. It was through this work that my perspective on the purpose of art making radically shifted. I believe that we can never work to end systematic and institutional violence if we don't center the narratives of marginalized voices in our collective decision-making for social justice and equity. And in order to engage in resistance and solidarity and against the injustices inflicted on Aboriginal peoples of this land and all lands, it's imperative that we constantly engage in acts of awareness and decolonization. And I share this with you about myself with that intention. The TAC also has a land acknowledgement, which can be found on our website. And of course, I didn't realize that I can't actually click in these notes. So maybe one of my colleagues can share that link in the chat. TAC, the Toronto Arts Council, has been in operation since 1974 and has a mandate to support city arts communities. We do that by through our grant funding programs, and we have offered grant funding to a broad section of arts organizations and professional artists. There are two features of the of our operations that are really principal. The first is the way in which we operate at arm's length from the city, and the second is our peer review process. Our arm's length process ensures that while we are funded by the city, all of the grant programs that we manage are all internally determined as our staffing decisions and other initiatives that we take on. And all grant funding is awarded through peer review, meaning that we create panels and committees of community artists, community members, artists, and other stakeholders who participate in assessing applications. We never assess or make decisions as program managers. We always have a panel of individuals who participate and make those decisions. I think it's also important to just give you a brief bit of general basic eligibility requirements that you want to consider when you're applying to any program at the TAC. In order to receive grant funding, you must be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or have an application pending for permanent resident status or protected person status. You have to have a SIN number, and you have to be a resident of Toronto. That's really important, and it does come up a lot. If you have a question about whether or not you live within the city of Toronto, you can easily determine that using your postal code. If there is an M at the beginning of your postal code, then you are a city resident. If not, if there's an L or an N or another letter, unfortunately, where you reside is technically outside of the bounds of the city of Toronto, and you're not currently eligible to apply for grant funding. You have to be a professional artist, which TAC defines as someone who has developed their skills through training and practice. They're recognized as such by other artists working in their tradition. You're actively participating in your art, and you seek payment for your work with a history of public presentation. Now, we recognize at the Toronto Arts Council that due to systemic barriers within the broader arts community that limit opportunities for presentation, particularly for equity-seeking groups, that some flexibility is required in interpreting an eligibility criteria and what makes someone a professional artist. And so if you have a question about whether you would qualify, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We take an expansive and flexible approach and understanding. But as long as you have examples of artwork and you've been actively working on your art, and you would spend more time working on your art if it was financially feasible, we can probably make it work. For this program, you cannot have an overdue final report for any grant. And there is a little bit of a distinction there for mentors. As we're going to get into later, you apply to this program both as a newcomer artist and with a mentor. But just suffice it to say, if you have outstanding grant final reports, please contact me before you submit an application. Artists are also limited in applying to one individual grant per funding stream each year. I've put up a list here of the TAC Arts Discipline grants, and there are individual opportunities within a number of these categories, all of which can be found on our website. You're also eligible to apply for one strategic program grant. Now, I want to note that the Newcomer and Refugee Artist Mentorship is unique in that by receiving this grant, you are not limited in applying for one other strategic program. So in other words, this program operates a little bit outside of the traditional structures. So you can apply each year annually for one grant from one of these program discipline grants and one grant from a strategic grant, in addition to applying for the Newcomer and Refugee Artist Mentorship Program. And I'll just review, because I know there was a request. The discipline grants include community arts or creative communities, dance, Indigenous arts, literary arts, music, theater, visual arts and media arts. And I see we're also missing the Black Arts program. So we need to add that to this slide. So I'll make a note of that for myself. The Black Arts program is a newly initiated discipline funding stream that my colleague Tamaj manages. And you can ask Tamaj any questions you might have about that program, either here or by email at another opportunity. Strategic programs include the Animating Toronto Parks, Animating Historic Sites, Artists in the Libraries, Animating Toronto Streets, Open Door, Newcomer and Refugee Arts Engagement. This program, the Newcomer and Refugee Artist Mentorship Program, our TAC CS Digital Solutions Incubator, and the TAC Leaders Lab. We're going to be talking primarily today about the Newcomer and Refugee Artist Mentorship Program. There's an image on this slide. It's a green background with the Toronto Arts Council logo. It says grants open to individual applicants, and it has the application deadline, May 2nd, 2022. There's also a hashtag TAC grants and the website, torontoartscouncil.org. I'm going to be speaking today about this mentorship program. I'm going to give you some important information that you might need to determine if you're eligible for this specific program. We're also going to talk with some past participants of the program. We're going to hear from a couple of team members at the Neighborhood Arts Network who manage the mentor matching process, and hopefully we'll answer any of your questions that you may have about how to apply, whether you're eligible, how applications are assessed, and all sorts of other fun details. The most important thing to note about this program, in addition to that May 2nd deadline, is that this program is intended to support newcomer artists in reaching their goals and provides one-on-one mentorship with a mentor of your choosing to help you integrate into the community in Toronto and find success here in our arts community. This program is very unique compared to other programs that we manage. It's incredibly flexible and responsive. It is designed to allow the two parties, the newcomer artist and their selected mentor, to work at their own pace, in their own schedule, over the course of a year. Your mentorship doesn't have to last a full year, but you have to start your mentorship sometime after July 1st, which will be after the date of notification. And you need to finish your mentorship sometime before June 30th, 2023. This program supports newcomer and refugee artists who have lived in Canada for 7 years or less, meaning that you arrived in Canada and sought status as a Canadian refugee, permanent resident, or Canadian citizen sometime after July 1st, 2015. The program provides $10,000 in funding for individual newcomer professional artists and their mentors. It's $5,000 paid directly to the newcomer, $5,000 paid to the mentor. I'm going to talk a little bit later on about that funding and some strategies about how to think about that funding, particularly as it relates to your application. As I said, this program is quite unique. Typically, when you apply to grant programs, you're going to be providing a budget and breaking down exactly what you intend to do with the funding. That is not the case for this program. This program is providing funding to support your time in mentorship. We don't ask you any questions about budget, and we don't ask you to tell us what you intend to do with the funding. It's meant to support your time together. The mentorship application is submitted through our application portal known as Smart Simple, which is linked on our website on the newcomer artist page. It is a co-application, but the newcomer is the lead applicant. Both parties will create accounts, and when the newcomer gets to the section in the application entitled Mentor ID, they will add their mentor, and that will attach the mentor to the application. It allows both the mentee and mentor to review the application and work on a draft together, and the mentee will then submit when you are ready. Likewise, the mentee is responsible for the final report, which must be submitted within 3 months of the date that you self-select as the end date of your mentorship. In a moment, we're going to hear from some past participants who are going to share with you their experience, including the kinds of challenges they faced, how they designed their mentorship, and what went well in this program. You can also add questions in the Q&A directly for Malika and Nick, and please feel free to do so as we're going along. They hopefully will be able to stick around at the end to answer some of those questions. As I said, we define a newcomer or refugee as someone who arrived in Canada after July 1st, 2015. And a refugee is a person who was forced to leave their home country and is now located in Canada. The applicant must be a citizen, permanent resident, protected person, or have an application pending. This program supports professional artists, and as I said, there is flexibility about how we identify professional artists, but generally it's someone who's developed their skills through practice or training, recognized by professionals working in the same tradition, actively practicing, seeking payment for their work, and has a history of public presentation. As I said, you have to be a resident of the City of Toronto, you have to have a SIN number, and you cannot have received this grant in the past as a newcomer mentee. Also, undergraduate students cannot apply to this program. Graduate students are eligible to apply as long as your mentorship is not related in any way to the work that you're doing in your graduate studies, and you must provide a letter from your program administrator or director specifying that the project you're working on in your studies is not related to this application or to your mentorship. The same applies to a mentor. A mentor is eligible if they are a graduate student, but they must provide that documentation in the support material section. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now to Malika Saida and mentor Nick Sweetman. Nick and Malika were 2018 recipients of this grant, and they're going to talk a little bit about their time together, how they met one another, and how they came to work together. Before I do, I just want to acknowledge this fantastic photo of Malika and Nick. They're standing in front of what I believe was Malika's first mural created as part of this program. It's a beautiful image of a human figure with red cheeks and blue eyes, feathers in the hair, and there's sort of a background, looks like flowers and forests and maybe some smoke. And I'll let Malika and Nick take it from here and tell us a little bit more.
Okay, how's it going, everybody? Malika, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Do you want to start? Or...
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, in 2018 I got the mentorship, but I moved to Canada in 2017, and at that time I was graduate from I was holding a MFA in visual communication, and I was working as a freelance illustrator. Just before moving to Canada, I invited by the city of Tehran to do murals. I had a very short time to practice, but when I moved to Canada, I was sure about what I wanted to pursue as my career here. So, but like most of newcomers, I had to deal with new and different rules and expectation of the culture and its language. I felt insecure at that time about all the changes. I felt self-doubt about my future here, and as an artist, yeah, and in addition to that issues, I faced difficulty due to a lack of knowledge about how the art system works here, and a lack of fellow artists to follow. This mentorship, yeah, I heard about the mentorship from one of my friends. And then I sent an email. I remember I talked to Ines about what I'm looking for. And then Ines introduced me Nick, and I went to Nick's murals, and I just love everything. And yeah, I told Ines that it would be the best fit. And then I met Nick personally, and we talked about the application. Thank you, Nick. You helped me a lot to write the application, and then we got it. We got it, and yeah, the mentorship program, I can say it helped me a lot to overcome all the difficulties and barriers, and also support me in expressing my strong passion for what I do, to get myself out there as much as I can, and show people how determined I am about my art. And also it helped me to become integrated with into artist community, as Nick invited me to networking program. He introduced me to all people he knows, and yeah, he helped me to build up my network. And if I want to go to details, maybe Unique, you can go ahead and then we can go back to what we have done in details.
Yeah, so I, like Malika said, I was approached by Toronto Arts Council, by Inez, in 2018 to kind of put an application together with Malika. She was coming from Iran, where there's a sort of more limited view of what's appropriate in public art, and so you know, she expressed a desire to explore public art and try some of these visual ideas that she was not able to do in Iran. So that was a really exciting thing for me to kind of to help her see that become a reality. And then really all I did was introduce Malika to Street Art Toronto and the people that I know through those programs. Street Art Toronto, if you don't know, is a branch of the city government that makes a lot of funding available to get public art projects going. And so they have different mingling events where you can, you know, learn about projects that are happening or just kind of meet other artists. So different networking opportunities that I invited Malika to, introduced her to Barakat, who is an organizer in the city that puts together an annual mural project that involves all women identifying artists. So Malika was very quickly kind of brought up into that group, and I started to see her work on different projects that I had no idea about. So it really was a lot of Malika's determination. Once I kind of showed her the door, she really quickly jumped through it, and now I'm happy to say she has her own, you know, mural collective. I'm seeing work in my own neighborhood by her. I'm able to put her on other projects very easily because she now has a portfolio of public art work that's that she can point to, and I think she's, you know, one of the up and coming talents in the city now. So really happy that I could do anything to help her with that. The picture you see in this slide is my apartment. We sort of primed the wall so that Malika could try her hand at spray painting, which is one of the skills that she told me at the beginning she wanted to build. And so I taught her a little bit about, you know, going from a small sketch to a large wall, taught her how to measure things out and to kind of plan the design before you start coloring. I showed her a few spray painting techniques, and what you see there is basically all Malika. I maybe did a few techniques to show her what to do, but this is her first mural painted with spray paint. So we were both really excited about that. And then the other thing we did together was we tried to approach a business that had been graffitied, and the city has a program called Start Support, which allows the supplies for a mural project to be covered up to $2,000 if it's covering up illegal graffiti. So Malika and I drove around her neighborhood looking for different businesses that we could approach to offer a mural in this way. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get any of those projects off the ground, but Malika got a little bit of a sense of what it's like to propose a project like this. And then, yeah, other than that, we kind of just worked on her bio and her CV and really making her artist statement, you know, really tightening up all the language around that, and so that she can apply to things very easily. She has those documents like ready to go. Yeah, I think that's a good start.
Nick, can I jump in? Somebody
Sure,
wanted
yeah,
to know,
please.
you mentioned after you started talking about START, you mentioned another program. We didn't catch what it was called, but it sounded like Baroque or...
Barakat is the
Barakat.
name, the first name of another artist, Barakat Keswer, who she puts together Women Paint, which is an annual collaboration between many female identifying artists in the city and LGBTQ also. And it's a good opportunity for emerging artists to kind of get their foot in the door, get a few mural projects. The thing with public art is it's hard to get the yes, that first yes, when you really don't have a portfolio to show them, which is why I thought it was so important for our mentorship that Malika actually produce a mural, because people need to see that you can actually accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish. So that was one piece of her portfolio that I was able to give her, and then quickly she was able to add other projects through Street Art Toronto. I saw that she painted 2 of the utility boxes as part of the Outside the Box program, and really that is kind of what START is aiming for, to give a small project. START is Street Art Toronto. Sorry, I'm using those interchangeably sometimes. Street Art Toronto, or for short, they call themselves START. And they have a number of programs that are really designed to be a kind of springboard for emerging artists like Malika. So Outside the Box is one. There's concrete barriers. You may have driven around the city and seen along Richmond, for a huge section of Richmond, there's now colorful concrete barriers along the road that protect the cyclists from the traffic. And artists have covered all those concrete barriers for like more than a kilometer with different artwork. Malika is among those artists. And now that she has a few of those projects under her belt, it's really easy for her to get on these lists of the next project. So I had a project that I was coordinating in the summer for START in Etobicoke, where we were painting murals on the bunkies, the pool bunkies that are attached to every wading pool in the parks. There's this like concrete box that is just gray unless somebody does something with it. So the city funded a project where we got different artists to paint those, and I was able to put Malika's name in that list because she had already done so many projects with the city. They were like looking for a way to give her her next project. So she did it a really good way, where you kind of you get into the social fabric of the community, and then you start adding small projects to your portfolio, and that leads to bigger projects. Whereas now I think Malika is doing like quite large scale projects with her collective. It was a step-by-step thing, but now she's climbed the staircase, and she's one of the people that's getting these larger jobs.
That is wonderful. I think there's somebody who has a question, Dre, but I'm not sure if they wanted to ask it by text or over audio. So Dre, I'm happy to unmute you if you want to ask your question. Yes, no? Feel free to add it in the chat if you do want to ask your question. Is this program only for visual artists? Because I'm a musician. No, it's not. This program is a generalist program. It's open to artists of any discipline. We just happen to have Malika and Nick here today to talk a little bit about their own experiences. But you can be an artist in any discipline: dance, theater, visual arts, textile arts, fashion, design, any art across the art spectrum. I see there's at least another hand up. Is it Shadi? Would you like to ask your question audibly, or did you want to add it in the chat? Okay, I'll unmute you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shadi Khalil, and I have a question regarding this grant. So I am an art and culture practitioner. So before coming to Canada, I used to live in Egypt, and I had a social enterprise that's providing a safe and free space to support freedom of expression, cultural diversity and cultural identity through art and the local community in south of Egypt as a cultural center. And since I moved to Canada, I am thinking of somehow trying to start to build a collective art and culture space for artists and also for youth from the community, embracing diversity, because I see that there's lots of speaking about inclusivity, but embracing the diversity and how we can all together think about Canada, cosmopolitan Canada, not only diverse Canada. So my question here, do I qualify for this grant, even if I am not the person who's doing the art? So I do have art discipline in theater, especially shadow puppetry theater and improv, but mainly my idea to find a mentor to work on establishment of a venue, of a space. Do you think I am eligible for this program or not? And thank you.
That's a great question. It's challenging. This program at the moment is very, very popular in terms of the number of applications that we receive and how much funding we have in order to support the program. So currently, it's only open to artists looking to do a mentorship in their arts practice. I think that there is room for consideration, particularly if you were going to be looking for a mentor working in the theater tradition and kind of working through art as activism. An organization or an arts organization that comes to mind is Project Humanity, Modern Times as well. So why don't you email me? We can talk a little bit about what you're hoping to do. I would say, based on what you've described, no, that wouldn't be eligible. You'd need to find a way to incorporate your arts practice into your mentorship. Wanting to start a collective is a fantastic, as Nick and Malika were talking about. Malika has started her own collective, or is part of a collective now. So I wouldn't say that it's totally outside of the scope of the program, that might be one of your goals, but you still have to approach this program as an artist first. So I hope that kind of answers your question. But please do feel free to email me at liza@torontoartscouncil.org, and we can have a one-on-one phone call to talk a little bit more about what you're hoping to do.
Thank you, Lisa. I will email you, and also I'll email you some of my previous work, especially in shadow puppetry.
Okay.
With the children and youth. And as you said, I can use this as an intro.
Yep.
But yeah, I will email you and then we can speak about that. Thank you a lot for your response.
Yeah,
Much
absolutely.
appreciated.
Absolutely. Okay. Are there any other questions specifically for Nick and Malika? I see Nitin. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Do you want to ask a question audibly, or would you prefer to add your question in text? And are your questions specifically for Malika or Nick, or are your questions more generally about the program? Because we're going to have some time at the end to talk a little bit about, to answer any questions about the program. Okay, I am going to, okay, so you've asked for Malika and Nick, how often did you meet? Did anyone feel it should have been more or less? So just asking a little bit about your work plan and your strategy.
I'll go first. Malika and I would meet, I'd say, can't remember that well, but I think we were meeting once or twice a month. Malika had a part-time job, or maybe it was a full-time job. And so our time together was a little limited, but it really is kind of up to the mentee, how intense the mentorship is. You kind of find a balance between each other's schedules. So there was some weeks where I was really busy with my career and maybe couldn't make myself available to Malika. There were other weeks where she was really busy with career and family. So I don't think it was more than once or maybe twice a month during the year. But then there were some days where we would see each other, or some weeks where we would see each other more often because, for example, I was working on at one point a big city project that I had Malika come and help me with for one day, or a couple of days maybe. You know, it was sort of like if we had something to do, then we would get together, and if we were busy that week or there wasn't really anything new to talk about, we would sort of let a week go by or 2 weeks go by. It wasn't too intense. I hope Malika doesn't feel that it could have been more intense. I think we found a good balance with our schedules and ended up getting a lot done, but obviously could have done more. I'll let Malika answer though.
I can say 2 or 3 times per month, but I remember that summer I was so lucky because you were so busy with 2 big, massive projects, one in Bathurst and Wilson, and then one at Lakeshore. And I was working part-time, and my son was so little, so I had to go and pick him up at like 5 or 6, but my time was so limited, but I was able to jump at Nick's project, and he sometimes help him, and sometimes only watch him. And then after in winter we were able to meet each other, and Nick helped me to he taught me how to prepare my applications, and he invited me to some networking program.
Hopefully that answers the question. All right.
Yeah, that's it.
There was another question for you, Malika, that was just about how you and Nick were matched. So I wonder if maybe you could just talk for a minute or two about the support that you got from Neighborhood Arts Network and just what that process was like. I will talk more generally, and we're going to hear from the team at Neighborhood Arts Network who are supporting artists in the mentorship matching process. But maybe you could just talk for just another minute about how you and Nick came to be mentee-mentor.
Okay. I sent an email to Ines and told him that I'm looking for someone help me to get into mural. Ines introduced me Nick, and I was go through Nick's Instagram and website and saw he did lots of mural projects, and his style was so great. So I made my decision and let Ines know that I am sure Nick's gonna be a great fit for what I'm looking for. It was simple for me to say yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both very much. We might have some more questions for you if you're able to stick around, but if you've got to jump back to work, we understand. And thank you both so much for joining us today. It's really wonderful to get to hear from people who've participated in the program directly. And also people just get sick of hearing my voice drone on about the program. So it's nice to hear from some other people. But we will happily talk some more about the program and about how the mentor matching process works, how the mentorship process works. So please stick around if you're able. So the first thing is, how does the mentorship work? As I said, applicants to the program apply with their mentor, and mentors and mentees work together to design a mentorship work plan that's based on the newcomer artist interests. You're not required as part of this mentorship to create work together. And I think that what's really important there is kind of understanding what is a mentorship, what makes the parameters of a mentorship. So as Malika alluded to, if you are a newcomer or a refugee artist who's interested in applying to this program, but you don't have a mentor, what you'll want to do is email me after this is over. And I will set up a phone call with you. I'll talk a little bit about this program with you directly. And then I will put you in touch with either Eva or Inez, who are going to come up and speak in a moment, about Neighborhood Arts Network. Neighborhood Arts Network is a partner organization of the Toronto Arts Council, and they manage the mentor matching process. After you go through that mentor matching process, hopefully you will meet a mentor that works for you and you're both available, and then you will apply together. As I said, newcomer artists are the lead applicants, so they will create the application in our Smart Simple portal, and they will add their mentor to the application. The mentorship application itself is pretty straightforward. It's 5 or 6 questions, most of which are answered by the newcomer artist, but there's one question that's asked specifically of the mentor. And the biggest, most important part of the application, in my opinion, is the work plan that you design together. This is a very flexible program. So as Nick and Malika talked about, you are structuring that work plan around your own schedules and your own availability and needs. But you'll want to, it's important for newcomer artists to have some really strong clarity on what your artistic goals are. Having specificity about what you want to achieve beyond just, I want to work as a professional artist in the city of Toronto, and I want to make my living doing my arts practice. You want to try to think more deeply about what your goals are so that you and your mentor together can design a work plan that's going to meet those needs. And the best work plans are designed with the mentee's goals in mind, but with strong influence from the mentor. Things like opportunities to meet other people in the community, events you might go to. As Nick talked about, being able to introduce the newcomer artists to various organizations or opportunities to do work or get funding to support your work. And so it's really important, that mentor matching process, that you find the right mentor. Having served and sat on and watched these panels, I can say that generally the panelists are less interested in how talented they think you are. And they're more interested in, do you know what you want to achieve? Is this the right mentor to help you meet those goals? And have you designed a work plan that really fits well with that? Are there really good opportunities for that? Somebody's asked in the chat about what are the qualities of an ideal mentor. And it's a really difficult question to answer, because the ideal qualities of a mentor are specific to the needs of the artist, the newcomer artist. We also take, for mentors, you don't have to just identify as an artist. Arts workers are also eligible to serve as mentors. And that sometimes comes into play. Let's say you're, like Malika, you're a large scale, you want to do murals in public art. Or you're interested in doing large public installations. Sometimes that kind of work requires really strong grant writing skills and really strong understanding of who are the major players within that public art community. And so sometimes the right mentor for you might not necessarily be another artist. It might be somebody who understands the ins and outs of accessing public funding. Participants in this program are not necessarily emerging artists. We have newcomers to Canada who are very, very senior in their practice, and they're not necessarily looking for an artistic mentor who's going to teach them new skills, but they're looking for that person who's going to really help them understand the ecology of the arts community here. And so that's why we also allow arts workers to serve as mentors. The other thing that's important to understand in terms of understanding what is a mentorship is that a mentorship is not necessarily a collaboration. It's not necessarily an internship or an apprenticeship. You might have the opportunity to work together, as Nick and Malika talked about, being able to bring Malika in to do work and be participating in work that Nick was doing. But you want to avoid situations where it can be perceived as exploitative. This funding is intended to support your time and mentorship together. It's not intended that your mentor edits your manuscript, for example, or brings you on as an artistic associate director on a production. That might be a feature of your mentorship, but it shouldn't. This shouldn't supplement or pay for another project, if that makes sense. If you're going to be working together in an apprenticeship type capacity, that should be funded through the project that you're working on together. It might be a great opportunity, but it needs to be clearly within the parameters of what is a mentorship. And a mentorship typically will last between 6 to 12 months. I would definitely say that the panel prefer longer mentorships over shorter mentorships, but I've seen shorter mentorships be successful, particularly when they're structured around a particular timeline. So let's say, for example, you are a dance artist and your big goal for the year is that you want to audition for a company that's hosting an open call at some point in the winter. So you and your mentor might work together quite intensely over the course of 4 or 5 months to help you prepare for that audition. And then you might only have 1 or 2 meetings planned for after the audition to talk about next steps and other opportunities. And so I have, as I said, seen shorter mentorships work, but ultimately a mentorship is a relationship. It's getting together a couple times a month, having coffee, talking about various topics, having opportunities to think about, I want to do these things, or, this is really interesting to me. And then your mentor says, oh, that makes me think of this person or this organization that I can put you in touch with. So it's really the mentor leveraging their experience and their network in support of you as a newcomer artist. But as I've said, I think the most important part of the process is artists having a clear sense of their goals, their mentor being a good match, and the work plan you design together. And with that in mind, I would like to turn it over to my colleagues from Neighborhood Arts Network, Eva and Inez, to talk a little bit about Neighborhood Arts Network and to talk a little bit about the mentor matching process that they support. Take it away.
Thank you, Liza. It's really great to be here with all of you as well. So my name is Eva. I'm the Outreach and Events Coordinator at Neighborhood Arts Network, and I am wearing a white button-up shirt in front of a beige wall. There's a doorway behind me with some light coming in. I have a nose ring, and I have dark hair and use they, them pronouns. And I'll pass it to Inez.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see or to meet you. My name is Inez. I use the pronouns she, her, and I'm wearing a white button-up shirt with a black sweater. I am in front of a wall that has geometric shapes, and to my right there is a lamp and essential oil diffuser. I'm a senior program coordinator, and I've been with Neighborhood Arts Network for the past since 2016. So I have worked in this specific program for the past 5 years, and it truly is dear to my heart. I have seen incredible artists come through the program, and now 5 years later, they're just doing incredible things. An example is Malika, how much she has grown. It's truly amazing to see. And I really hope we're able to do the same thing for all of you. And as Liza said, Neighborhood Arts Network is part of the Toronto Arts Foundation. And we offer accessible programming as well as awards and partnerships throughout Toronto with artists as well as arts educators and other arts organizations. And our role in this specific program is to support you in finding the right mentor so that you're able to apply to the mentorship program. Another thing that we are able to do is if you are having a little bit of difficulty figuring out what can your mentorship look like, what kind of things, what kind of mentorship or what kind of things you can include in your mentorship that will also align to your goal. That is something that we are also there to support you through this if it is requested. We also offer translation services if you need them, and that is at no cost to you. And if you are successful, we also plan and host 2 social events so that you get to know other successful applicants as well as the team at Neighborhood Arts Network. So that is a little bit about myself and a bit about Neighborhood Arts Network. And I'm going to pass it up to Eva, who will speak with you about what to expect during the one-on-one interviews with us.
Thank you, Inez. Tamaj, if you can please go to the next slide, that would be great. Great. So similar to Inez, I've also been supporting this program for a few years. I've been with Neighborhood Arts since 2018. And just like Inez, this is one of my favorite programs. Our work, I think in general, our jobs are pretty great in the scheme of jobs, but one of the great things about working on this program is the opportunity to really get to know all of you individually. So how the process works if you are looking for mentor matching support is after you have a conversation with Liza to make sure that you are eligible for the program. So again, thinking about your discipline, maybe how long you've been in Canada, other resources that might be helpful for you. Then Liza would connect you with either Inez or I, and we would have a one-on-one conversation. So it's up to you, whatever way that's most comfortable. We can do phone calls or video calls. We used to do in person. Unfortunately, we're still not doing that this year, but hopefully next year. And during that conversation, we really just get to know you a little bit. So we talk about some of your goals as an artist, but we also try to learn about you as a person to get a sense of maybe what your communication needs are, what your personality is, what kinds of things you like outside of your creative practice as well. So we can really help find that great match. Just because somebody else is also a filmmaker, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best fit for you. So we really think about all of these different factors that might impact your work, where you are and where you want to be as well. So we have a mentor database that we look through. It's got hundreds of mentors that are all vetted. So somebody asked before about what makes a good mentor. It's a really great question, but we look at all different things around mutual respect, demonstrated work and their professional practice, and other questions related to the application as well. It's a very personalized matching process as well. So after we have that 30-minute conversation with you, we would go and then look at the database, see if there's a good fit. Maybe we would think, oh, I actually saw this person's exhibition, or I met this person, or my friend was telling me about this person, and I think that your work would be really cool together. We would reach out to them and then send you their information. So there's informed consent in the whole process. So that means the whole time we ask you, hey, we think this person would be great. What do you think? And you're able to say yes or no. And we facilitate that conversation too. So just because you're matched with somebody doesn't mean that you have to move forward with them. I think that's really important. We're here to support you throughout that process. And similarly, if there's somebody that you're really excited to work with or you'd love to meet, but you don't really know how to reach out to them because you've never met before, we can also help facilitate that introduction as well. So it's a very long, personalized process, but it's a lot of fun and it's been pretty successful as well. And if anybody has further questions about that process, please let us know. Other things we ask about in the conversation is, as Inez mentioned, if you need any translation or accessibility supports too. So if you're more comfortable writing the grant in your native language, for example, we have some funds to support that translation. So you can write the grant in the way that feels best for you and then have it translated into English to be submitted. So If you have any questions about access or support, Inez and I are really happy to sort you out with that. We do have to say there's no guarantee that we will match you, but we have not been unsuccessful yet. The other thing to mention is just because you're matched with somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll receive the grant. However, we've matched people in the past, maybe didn't receive the fund, but they kept a close work relationship because they still got along really great and they loved collaborating, and amazing things came of that as well. So you can also think of it like a networking opportunity. Back to you, Inez.
I think you've covered most things. As Eva said, it's a really exciting process. It's very personalized, and what we would ask from you is to be patient. We are always, we're always working. Where Eva and I have weekly check-ins where we talk about and we support each other about who the best mentor could be for you. Something really important and really helpful to us is that you provide us with as much information as you feel comfortable in relates to what your needs are and about your artistic practice, and even who your ideal mentor could be. Many times I ask, whenever I meet artists like you, I ask them if they have someone they could be paired with, who would they be? And whether you know them or you don't. Sometimes they say, I went to this exhibition and I really love the artist, I love the work, and I would love for that person to be my mentor because I think we could really, I could really learn a lot from them. And I also have a lot to offer them. Sometimes it works out that artist is also on our mentor list. So it could be that if you have that dream person, we could also have access to them. So something to think about as well before coming to those interviews, so that you don't get so you're not surprised when we pose that question to you. We also really encourage you to reach out to people. And the way we can support you is we will be able to take a look at the email that you will be sending out and make sure that all the information is there. And we will be able to support you pretty much every step of the way. We usually send updates every 2 weeks. And it's just a fun, exciting. We recognize that it could be really, you can be a little bit nervous because you are expecting that call to say, yes, I have a mentor. But just enjoy the process as well. And know if you are not successful this time around, you are welcome to reapply next year. Several artists we have matched them 2-3 times. And, it's just until they find that right person that they can connect with. And it truly makes a difference in their artistic career. Eva, do you have anything else to add?
I think that's pretty much it. The other thing is we're also happy to support that first conversation. So if we think we found a good match and you and the mentor want to have a conversation, it's not a commitment. It's just a conversation to see how it feels to be together. Does it feel mutually respectful? Are they excited about your work? Do you like the way that you communicate and how it feels to be together? And if you're uncomfortable with going in without knowing this person, Inez and I are both happy to attend that meeting to help facilitate that conversation. And then from there, you can figure out what you want to do. And if this program isn't the right fit for you, or it doesn't work out for whatever reason, Neighborhood Arts Network has so many programs. We do probably too much. Everything is free, it's open to the public, and it's all professional development workshops as well. So it's not discipline specific. So that means it doesn't matter if you work in photography, film, dance, theater, music, writing, arts administration, whatever. We do have lots of great resources, so please reach out to Inez and I with any questions, and we're happy to connect you with those as well. Thanks so much. Back to you, Liza.
Thank you both so much for sharing a little bit about the mentor matching process and about what Neighborhood Arts Network does and how they offer supports. I want to now talk a little bit about the timeline. So right now we're kind of in the mentor matching process. We will be offering mentor matching services until just about April 1st. If you contact me on April 1st, I will do my absolute best to put you in touch with Eva and Inez and get that process moving as quickly as possible. But we do need to have some time to support the matching process. And so we do have a matching deadline of April 1st. The deadline for submission of the grant itself this year is May 2nd. It does change every year, but this year's deadline is May 2nd. You'll be notified about whether you've been successful or unsuccessful with your application by the end of June. And then between July 2022 and June 2023 is when you're able to work on and complete your mentorship. You, as I said, you don't have to take a full year, but you have 1 year to complete the mentorship. Once your mentorship is completed, whatever date you self-select as the end date in your grant application, that will trigger the creation and submission of a final report. The final report is submitted by the newcomer artist, and it's 3 questions that generally ask you about your mentorship, challenges that you may have had, opportunities that have come out of it, and how you feel about the mentorship. And that's a really important part of the process, particularly if it didn't go that well, or you didn't have a great fit with your mentor. Those are things that we want to know. The team at NAN wants to know. If we get, negative reviews of mentors over and over again, we will stop recommending that mentor to people. So the final report is really helpful. It really tells us a lot. And we appreciate your submitting that. So how do you do your application? So let's say you've gone through the process of being matched by NAN, or you have a mentor already in mind that you want to work with. You will create an account in Smart Simple. You will add your mentor as a contact in your application so that you are a lead applicant with a co-applicant. There's 4 or 5 questions, as I mentioned, and then there's some supplementary material that you'll include. These include a copy of your resume or CV, as well as a copy of the mentor's resume or CV, and support material. Support material is generally examples of your work. You're required as a newcomer artist to include 2 examples of your work, one of which needs to have been completed within the last 2 years. And occasionally it also makes sense for mentors to submit samples of their work as well. Just depends on the nature of what you're doing together. Let's say you're both multidisciplinary artists who are working on large scale initiatives or broad projects. Those are things that where you have a lot of crossover in style or in the kinds of work that you do. It may be beneficial to include examples of the mentor's work. Or if the work that you do is very technical or theoretical, it's important to remember that the panel themselves, while they're all artists, they're going to be representing all of the arts disciplines that have submitted applications. So, if we have an unusually large number of dance applications one year, we might have 2 dance artists on the panel. And so those dance artists aren't necessarily going to be as clear or as well versed in visual arts practice or understanding public art for that matter. And so it's important that those examples of your work be able to speak to the panel in a way that demonstrates the type of work that you do. And your examples of your work should be relevant to what you've stated as your goals. So if you're a visual artist who's worked primarily in painting, but you want to transition to sculpture, you probably want to include an example of a sculpture in your supplementary materials. You might include one painting, this is the type of painting that I've been doing, but what I really want to do is sculpture. And here's an example of a sculpture piece that I created recently. And again, it may be important to to include examples of your mentor's work, but not necessarily. The supplementary material section is where you will also include letters if you are a graduate student. So as I said, a graduate student is required to submit a letter from their program director, and you can include that in the supplementary material section. I noticed that somebody has raised their hand a few times. I just want to check in about that. Kiran Preet, do you want to speak out loud? I can unmute you if you'd like to ask your question. If not, you can please feel free to add it in the chat. Okay, well, we will move on then, and we can come back if you want to add your question. You can also add your question in the Q&A section. So that's the application process in the bare bones, and really like the overall just basics of it. As Eva and Inez mentioned, Neighborhood Arts Network provides mentor matching support. We also provide translated guidelines. So after today, if you have not already visited our website, please feel free to visit the website, the TAC website, and there you can find copies of the guidelines. We have them available in Arabic, Bengali. I believe that the Chinese guidelines are actually available in Mandarin, but they should be accessible to both Mandarin and Cantonese speakers, Farsi, Korean, Kurdish, Spanish, and Turkish. And we also, through the Neighborhood Arts Network, can provide translation services. So if you would prefer to write your application in a language other than English or French, then we will work to have that application translated. If you submit an application in French, we generally will include a French-speaking panelist to assess that application. And occasionally we will also bring in an outside assessor to help support applications submitted in French. The other application supports that TAC provide are for applicants who identify as deaf, disabled, or suffering from any kind of mental illness and need support to complete their application. You're eligible to access up to $500 per year to cover the cost of assistance from a social service provider. You'll need to contact me right away, ideally with 6 weeks time to spare before the deadline to make arrangements. The way that we do this is that you will provide a support service person that you would like to work with, and TAC will pay them directly for their time spent working to assist you. So please reach out to me if you require some accessibility support in completing an application because of any of the above. So I'm going to speak just briefly a little bit about the assessment process. So all grants at TAC are awarded on a competitive basis, and we put together a panel of practicing artists that are representative of the application submitted. So in this case, generally my panelists will represent a broad cross-section of arts disciplines. They also might be former participants in this program, either newcomer artists or mentors. And they generally will have a strong cultural awareness and represent a broad spectrum of representation, including gender and cultural diversity. The panel is going to be looking at the artistic merit or quality of your application, whether this mentorship supports the applicant's integration into the Toronto arts community. Will the mentorship provide a meaningful experience to the applicant? Does the mentor have suitable experience and qualifications for this mentorship? And is the work plan realistic? So those are the things that the panel are going to be assessing. Of those, I think the three things that I've said, I say this over and over again, I think they're really, really important. It's, does the newcomer artist have a clear understanding of what they want to achieve through the mentorship? Is the mentor a good match for that? Do they have that relevant experience, and do they know the right people to help support them? And does the work plan fit with what they want to achieve? You'll notice there that it says, is the work plan realistic? think that's really important. And if you have questions about your work plan, please, please, please reach out to me. The work plan is by far the most, the biggest component of the application in terms of work that's going to be required in submission. Most of the other questions are pretty intuitive. They're going to be things about how you came to practice your art, you know, the history of your arts practice, what you're wanting to achieve. If you're applying as a mentor, you're going to be asked, what is it about this artist that you want, that draws you to them? Why do you want to work with them? And with respect to your own experience, why are you the right mentor for them? But the work plan is something that you really want to work on together. I don't provide a template or examples of work plans because I don't feel that that's really helpful to applicants. It's really more important, and you'll generally put together a better work plan if you work together, if you talk about your own style of working, your availability, what kind of time commitment you have. It's important to note that over the last several years, almost all of these mentorships have been completed entirely virtually. Because of the ongoing pandemic and the restrictions around gathering. A lot of times mentors are meeting over Zoom or over other platforms. They might be having phone calls. When possible, perhaps they're meeting at a park or going for coffee. And I have seen, as I said, a really wide variety of mentorship work plans be successful. Some people structure their work plan around phases or themes. So for the first portion of our time together, we're going to meet once a month. We're going to talk about topics including XYZ. In phase 2, the artist is going to be working on creating an album, and I'm going to support them. I have a studio in my house, so I'm going to allow them to have free access to the studio, or I know some great sound engineers or some musicians that might be interested in being part of creating the album with them. I'm going to provide feedback or give them some of my experience just in mixing and other things. Again, I'm just speaking really generally here and giving examples. But generally speaking, you want to have an opportunity for regular meetings, regular connection, opportunities to work on some artwork or provide feedback on ongoing work, if that's relevant to your mentorship, and opportunities to learn about opportunities that are available to you in the broader community. As a newcomer, you may not know all of the various people, organizations, events that are happening. And so your mentor should be providing those opportunities through the mentorship. I'm going to just offer a few general grant writing tips. These are very general, but I think that they are important to note. Read the guidelines carefully. Make sure that you are eligible. Make sure that what you are thinking is what you want to do as part of this program really fits within the program guidelines and objectives. For example, I was just talking about music creation. If what you outline in your grant application is the creation of an album, and the person that you've selected as your mentor is really more of a collaborator, you might be better suited to applying for a music creation grant. If you're not outlining and defining something that is a mentorship, then you may find if what you're planning to do is really a project, then it may be better suited to applying to a project grant through one of the arts disciplines that I showed earlier. Contact me, reach out to me, and reach out to me early. Let's have a phone call. Let's talk about your idea. If you have submitted an application or you have an application that you're drafting, let me know. If there's enough time and I have capacity, I'm always available to look over draft applications that are in Smart Simple and provide feedback on them. Give yourself lots of time. It takes time to gather materials, including your contributors' bios and CVs, examples of your work, and you want to make sure that the examples are of the highest quality that you can contribute. You want the examples of your work to be relevant to the mentorship that you're planning, and so you may want to spend some time working on more work. This is another really good recommendation. Draft and edit and save your writing for your grant in a separate place. The grant panel Smart Simple is fantastic, but it can be glitchy at times. And if you're not kind of constantly saving your work there, you don't want to lose it. So you can copy, I believe, a draft application as a PDF, pull it over into a Word document or a Google Drive, work on it together offline. When you feel your draft is in good shape, add it back into the portal and save it or submit it. If you want to save it there and have me take a look at it, that's great. Please feel free to reach out to me. I only will review applications that I can see in Smart Simple. So don't send me a draft application in a Word document. I want to be able to see it in the portal so that I know that you haven't exceeded the word count limits, that you've put things in the right places, and that you've answered all the questions. I won't provide feedback on something that you send me in an email. Use clear and direct language. You want to be succinct in a summary of what you're doing together in your mentorship. And you also don't want to use a lot of jargon or language that is really specific, academic or theoretical to the work that you're doing. As I said, this is a generalist panel. So you're going to have artists on the panel from all across the art spectrum. If they don't understand the application, you're not going to be successful. Get feedback, either ask me or ask a friend, ask somebody outside of you and your mentor who's totally neutral, who can say, oh, this didn't make sense to me. Or, you've talked about these things, but then you haven't identified them in your work plan. Follow instructions and complete all the fields. Triple check your grant. Read all of the instructions. Use the word limits as a guide and provide detailed information. I want to go back to something that I said briefly before about the funding. This program is quite unique, as I've said, because you're not asked to provide a budget. And very, very rarely, only in very rare instances, do I find that it's helpful for applicants to talk about what they want to do with the money. You do not have to provide a breakdown of how you're using the funding, and you're not required to work and collaborate and build a project together. For mentors, it can be helpful, particularly if you're freelance artists, to have a think about, $5,000 relative to your availability, but it almost never makes sense to include that kind of breakdown in the application. Save that space to talk about the substance of the mentorship. And likewise, as a newcomer artist, you're not going to be asked at the end in your final report what you spent the money on. So I don't think it's generally relevant to include. As I said, in a rare instance, for example, if you're a photographer and you've been mostly taking photos on your iPhone, but this grant is going to allow you to go out and purchase a new camera and some new lenses, or to get an Adobe Photoshop subscription. You might mention that in passing, but you don't need to talk about, I'm going to spend $1,000 on a camera and I'm going to do, again, that's not the reason for getting this grant funding. It's to support your time together in mentorship. And last of all, unfortunately, I believe that Neighborhood Arts Network, this grant writing consultation is completely booked, but I wanted to share this because I want you to know that grant writing support is available. If you would like help with your grant, or you have questions about submitting grants, you can reach out to Eva and Inez, or reach out to me. If there's enough interest, we can always try to schedule a grant writing info session before the deadline for this program. So please let us know if that's something that is of interest to you. I think that's it for me in terms of what I wanted to share with you today. So I do want to turn it over and just go through the chat and Q&A to make sure that we've answered everybody's questions. So if you have a question and we didn't answer it, now is the time to put your question into the Q&A, raise your hand, or add it in the chat. Ali, I noticed that you've said, I've lost the conversation and I don't know what I should do. So please do, why don't, Ali, if you need help finding a mentor, please do reach out to me, send me an email. I will help you. We can talk about mentor matching. We can talk about this program. You can also email Eva and we'll support you. Don't worry. We want to make sure that you feel well supported. This entire video so far has also been recorded. So you will have access to the recording of this. If there's something that was said that you want to go back and listen to, you are able to do so. I do have some availability this afternoon. If you would like to call me, I'm better reached by email because I can schedule a time to have a call with you, but I am around this afternoon. So if you need to call me this afternoon because you're really eager and you need, you're not available another time and this afternoon's the best time for you to reach me, you can call me this afternoon. I've included my my phone number above, but I'll put it here again for anybody who needs it. And my email as well, I'm going to add it in again. Just give me a second. So thank you very much. I want to thank again all of our presenters today, Malika and Nick, Eva and Inez. Thank you all so much for being here. If you're interested and you're here because you want to be a mentor, reach out to me by email. I'll send you all the information that you need. That's a good question, Ali. What are the chances of getting the grant? So it really varies from year to year. Typically, we get about 70 applications a year. And we generally have enough funding to support between 25 and 30 mentorships. It varies depending on the number of applications and how much funding we have, but we generally can support 26, 25 mentorships a year. But from year to year, we don't necessarily know how many applications we're going to get. Last year we had 50 applications, so the success rate was quite good. It was almost 50%. In other years, we've had upwards of 80 applications. So, that success rate would be a bit lower. It would be more like 20 or 30%. But again, the thing that really sets your application apart is going to be how clear are you on what you want to do? Do you have the right mentor, and have you designed a strong work plan? I'm not sure what you mean by how many people are here. I'm assuming you're asking how many people are part of today's session. It's varied. People have been coming and going. Lots of people registered, and so there may be some people who are going to view this later. But there are 26 spots available, generally somewhere between 25 and 30. 26 is an average available for the grant. I'm going to just wait a minute or two to see if there are any other questions that come up, but we are at 1:30, so if people have to jump off, please feel free. And thank you again for being here today. I do hope you'll reach out to me about applying or about getting connected to somebody at Neighborhood Arts Network for mentor matching or one of the other supports. Thank you so much.